I got to click the button that says got it. It means that I'm consenting to being recorded. There's something oddly soothing, but also unsettling at the same time about clicking that button every time.
Well, I mean, we all really want robots to control our lives, don't we? I mean, think of the freedom, you know?
Yeah. Well, if that actually takes over, no one would have to work fast food ever again.
Yeah. Most jobs would probably be gone. It's great.
That's a thrilling thought. But then they got to figure out what they're going to do about money. And that's a stressful thought because, okay, well, are you just going to get rid of money and everyone can just live in a utopia? I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, probably not.
In this country.
The people with money really like having that money.
They do. And so I hope that they do eliminate work.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that would be great if we didn't have to work. And the things that like need to be done could be done on a volunteer basis.
Maybe you get paid for volunteer work you do.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Well, it would cease to be volunteer work, though.
Yeah, but they could call it that. They lie about everything else.
They.
Yeah, they.
They're those liars.
Those liars.
Bunch of damn liars.
That's really what they are. That's, you know what, U.S. government, if you're listening to this podcast, please pay us for volunteer work.
Yeah. And stop being liars.
And stop being liars.
I assume that's the they. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
best. Part of the they.
It's the best I can come up with. I mean, I'm not very smart. But I think there's a conversation that needs to be had. And I actually, on this show specifically, and I really feel like we really messed up last week, Erik.
Oh.
Because we didn't address the elephant in the room that has been all over punk sites and the internet and memes all over the place. Did you hear about the singer of Buck Cherry wanting to front Minor Threat?
Yeah, I guess I saw like a post or something. And
I originally thought it was...
and then I saw your post.
In
support of it.
Yes. I 100% back this idea.
Okay. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear your reasons. This is your soapbox.
Well, as you know, I am a fan of things oftentimes that are just absolutely hilarious and seem to be destructive, and being well aware that this is something that's really going to probably go down in flames if it actually did happen. And to me, I think that this is the perfect recipe for that kind of thing to happen, because you're going to have a guy who essentially is singing, has been singing songs about drug use. I mean, there's that one song, I love the cocaine. Wasn't that Buck Cherry all lit up again?
I have no idea.
I think it was.
I can't even think of a Buck Cherry song.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I missed it.
I'm honestly, I'm so happy for you and jealous of you. I just think that it would be the most bizarre thing ever. And it would just be complete validation that we are living in like the Twilight Zone. And I just think it would be, the idea of like the guy who did the song All Lit Up Again, I Love the Cocaine, singing I've Got a Straight Edge would just be, and he even said that he would shave his head like Ian McKay to do it. He actually sent, from what I understand, and I don't think this is bullshit, he actually reached out to Brian Baker to do it. I think
they actually thinking about it?
I doubt it. I think Brian Baker's response was he just kind of laughed about it. I follow this YouTube channel sometimes called the Punk Rock MBA. And he kind of did like a video on this whole thing.
Oh yeah, I watched that guy. It's pretty.
Have
good
you watched
stuff.
him?
Yeah,
yeah. He's got some good stuff. I enjoy some of his videos and strongly disagree with some of his viewpoints, but that you're going to have that. But I think he does some really good videos. But I guess Brian Baker because he's in Bad Religion now. And I think that after Minor Threat, he went on to Dag Nasty. Then I guess between Dag Nasty and Bad Religion, I could be getting these timelines messed up, he was actually in a glam metal band.
Oh, wow.
So Fed McKenty was saying in his video that it kind of makes sense if you actually think of that. Brian Baker was not opposed to, at one time, selling out. That's one of the reasons why Minor Threat broke up, was that they wanted to have more of a commercial sound. And Ian MacKaye, I guess he called a band meeting and just said, I reject your demands. And which I mean, that's a beautiful thing, because now we have Fugazi. But could you imagine if you wouldn't have and would have said, well, okay, let's see what happens. And then Minor Threat puts out the U2 sounding record. That would have been weird. I would have been interested to hear it though. I mean, me too.
It would have to get filtered through the stuff they had previously done anyway, even like subconsciously. It would still have some sort of edge to it. And that's not a U2 pun, but like it would still be sort of punky. I mean, it would almost have to be, even accidentally. I think it could have been interesting.
Well, I mean, even U2 themselves in the early days had like that tinny thing kind of going on, and The Cure a little bit, and so I think that's what it would have been like, at least in the early stages of that. I think it would have been that just tinny kind of college rocky. Yeah. And basically, I think it would have been like Husker Du, Makes sense. Like what Husker Du did, because they were pretty much a straight up hardcore band when they first started too. All right. So then I got to ask you, and
yes,
maybe you're not as passionate about I am as on this topic, but what do you think? Do you think Minor Threat should
I don't know.
reunite?
I mean, I like your take on just sort of it being a hotbed of chaos, just setting something up to watch it destroy itself. I get that. It sounds cool. I'd watch it.
Yeah. And,
and Minor Threat to me, like, I don't even understand. I mean, I love Minor Threat, but it's like they barely existed. Anyway, you know what I mean? It was like a very short amount of time, very limited releases. And I mean, it had a huge impact on punk rock and society in general, at least in the punk rock community. And I think that's all amazing, but it also just died on the vine like a long time ago. And this idea that people are just like waiting for a Minor Threat reunion, it just seems funny to me,
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Like, were they talking about this before Buck Cherry? I assume that's his name. Buck Cherry.
That's what I call him.
Yeah. Like, did he cause all the idea just by saying he would want to do it?
I don't know.
Were they already talking about it?
I doubt it. No, I really doubt Minor Threat.
So if it happens, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I think what it was is, in fact, I'm almost 100% sure what it was is there was an interview that somebody did with that guy from Buck Cherry. I think his name is Josh Todd or something, but I'm going to call him Buck Cherry.
Yeah, I can't think of any better name for it.
And while I'm thinking about it, can we also mention that Buck Cherry, it's not my favorite name for a band, but I do think it's hilarious. Because you know what it is, don't you?
I don't.
It's Chuck Berry in reverse.
Oh, yeah, that's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, so I will give them that.
That's I kind of like them now. I mean, I've never heard them.
Yeah.
But
it's rock. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, even the song, the other big hit they had besides Let Up was this song called Crazy Bitch.
Oh, wow.
It's all over the place. And it's well, it's all over the place now if you're like in a bar, I mean, that's kind of like probably cover band stages,
Wow.
like I would assume. But yes,
I mean, I would probably not listen to them just based on
the name of that song.
the name of that song. Yeah, if that's their biggest hit,
it is.
then
Well, besides
no,
Lit Up, it's
not.
what it sounds like. It basically just sounds like 80s radio rock. And yeah, that song is obviously problematic.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing too, is if he's on there, like, and he's singing Filler, which has that line, I think it's in Filler, where Mackay was screaming about, you don't love her, like basically like, saying, yeah, you're making her like an object or something like that. I can't even remember the line right now. But anyway, that would be another thing is, your biggest hit was Crazy Bitch.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And
man. I don't know. Like I said, I don't care. I love the idea of chaos and
me too.
Self-destruction. And I guess that's fun to watch sometimes if it's not really hurting anyone.
Yeah, no.
And so I'm all about it. I'll go.
I think my biggest fear would be if it actually turned out good.
And they restarted making new music and recording.
Oh man.
As Minor Threat.
Now you're really getting into some scary territory there. As Minor. Well, I mean, it happened to Dead Kennedys haven't made new music, but
right.
The whole reunion thing with a different singer definitely happened with Dead Kennedys.
Yeah.
Black Flag. I mean, they actually went as far as to putting out that new album back in 2013. And but yeah, so yeah, Minor Threat. Hey, I got an idea, listeners. Let us know what you think. Are we wrong?
Yeah. Are you stoked on Mr. Buck Cherry singing for Minor Threat?
Yes.
Is that super exciting for you?
Okay. I actually think he should start calling himself Mr. Buck Cherry.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't he? It's way more well known than whatever his real name might happen to be.
I mean, yeah, Buck Cherry. I know
people come up to him and say, "Hey, you're Buck Cherry, right?" You think he goes, "No, actually, I'm Josh.
I'm Josh.
No. He says, "Yeah, I'm Buck Cherry."
He's he does.
Like
pretty soon, I'm going to be known as Minor Threat.
Yeah, you want an autograph? Sure. What the fuck does this say? It says my name. No, it's supposed to say Buck Cherry.
He just hands him the cover of a CD. It says Buck Cherry. There's my name right there.
Yep. Oh my God. Okay.
So
I'm glad we got that worked out.
Yeah, but I do think that it was important to address that on this show.
Yeah, it's pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Anything else important going on?
No.
All right. Speaking of records, though, we still talk about records on this show, don't we?
Sometimes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Is it okay if I talk about some records?
Think we could. Sure.
Okay. All right. I wanted to double check because I never know what's okay anymore. What's the right thing to do?
I don't know. Maybe there isn't one.
Maybe not. This episode is going to be another episode where Erik and I only have one pick apiece because we had another listener request from our good friend Michael Dunlap, also known as MJ Dunlap. Mm-hmm. And he requested that we reviewed an album from this group called Peter and the Wolf called The Ivory Palms. So we're going to get to that here in a little bit after we go through our two releases. So,
and then we're going to have a local review.
Yes.
Who is Justice Fetish from Des Moines.
Justice Fetish. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about my pick. It's from this group called Paris Death Hilton. Now, I know nothing about Paris Death Hilton other than I think the name is cool. And they are a Japanese experimental rock band composed of Kuba on electronics and Ken Takahashi on drums and electronics. So they're a duo. And I apologize if I'm getting those names wrong. And the name of this album is called Age of Death. And this was recommended to me from my friend John, who lives in Clinton, and which I was really surprised that he recommended this, because knowing my friend John, he normally doesn't seem to listen to stuff like this. I was really surprised. And then when I listened to it, the first thing I kind of thought was, this is like almost at times like dubstep, but then it kind of goes into really crazy electronics. It's all instrumental. It's definitely got a hip hop vibe to it, somewhat of an industrial thing kind of going on. There's elements of EDM. I would even say that there's elements of like kind of like spastic. I wouldn't call it like vaporwave, but the way that the songs are kind of structured and the way they kind of move around at times reminds me of that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I said, there's a lot of sort of that, which is the part that kind of reminds me of dubstep. So like, it's a very interesting sounding record, but it's not just one thing to me at all. All of those elements, I couldn't narrow it down and put this in any one of those genres on its own. It's just really kind of a culmination of like all of the crazy sort of electronic music that I've heard in the past, I don't know, decade or so. And yeah, it's really cool. There's 3 different songs called Dead Beef, which are all spelled with different lowercase and uppercase kind of switched around. Probably, I think my favorite song off of this was Einsteinic Death Model. And the first track called Say My Name, which for some reason I was thinking that it was going to be maybe some sort of like redoing of the Destiny's Child song, Say My Name. Yeah. And the reason why I immediately thought of that was because the next song is called Celebcore. So I was kind of expecting it to maybe be like something that you would hear Void Dweller do or something like that. That's kind of what I was wondering about. And actually one of the reasons why I thought that was because I shared Void Dweller with my friend John, and then he immediately shared this with me. So nice. I think he found similarities between Void Dweller and this. And that's another like reference, whatever Void Dweller is. I could definitely, like this is the parts of this are like that. There isn't, it's not as sample heavy at all. In fact, I don't think there was really any samples whatsoever, but I did watch a live performance. What it is, it's a live drummer actually. And then a bunch of electronic equipment. I'm assuming probably synths and samplers and machines and stuff like that. It's a really cool thing. So if you're a fan of like dubstep, and when I say dubstep, I don't mean necessarily dubstep like what's the Coda and the Space Ape? Am I saying that right?
Code 9
and the Space Ape. That's it. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily stuff like that. I'm thinking more like the music of Skrillex or something like that. A little bit, maybe a little spazzier at times, but it's not all that. There's definitely a lot more. It's definitely like controlled chaos is what this record is. And if you're a fan of industrial music, if you're a fan of just instrumental, electronic, crazy stuff, you could find something in here that you would like too. Very interesting record. Did you like this, Erik?
Yeah, I did. It's funny though. I think we had sort of different takes on it, which is cool because that's kind of how music should work. You know,
sure.
You are the filter. Sure. That music goes through, you know, but yeah, I would say that this is spaz rock of the highest order. Like this could live with the best of the spaz rock. You know, I don't know if that's an actual genre or not, but yeah, this is really cool. It's just synth and drums, real drums, but they do cut them up sometimes and chop them and things like that. But for the most part, it's a real drummer. And I think the drummer is really good, like really, really good. It's like jazzy, but it's hard hitting rock drums. The drums reminded me of like Trans Am, Big Business, Lightning Bolt, that kind of thing, where the drums are really equal in the mix and in the song, and they're just as much a part of anything else that's happening. The synths really reminded me of like Add Into X, things like that, but also they moved sort of like prog. I mean, like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and stuff like that. Like the movements themselves, the way they're played, I mean, it really is super prog, but super fun and totally chaotic. I really liked it, and I will listen to it again, but by the end of it, I was like, okay, I've hit my threshold for just spaz, synth, and heavy drums. Like,
yeah, that actually is one thing that I was actually going to mention. If you're, by the time you reach track 10, it definitely, this is the kind of record that I would have probably preferred to have like maybe cut it into like, 50%, like listen to the first 5 songs and then come back to it and listen to the last, because by the time you reach track 10, you definitely, it's like overwhelming.
Yeah. It starts to become hard to differentiate things.
And then the other thing I wanted to add too, I totally forgot to mention this. And I actually made it a point because you were mentioning bands like Trans Am and Lightning Bolt. Specifically, a couple songs, and I don't remember what songs they were, reminded me a lot of the band Hella. And I remember, I like you mentioned that kind of like, post rock sort of thing. And the drummer, Zach Hill, of Hella, the drummer of this band, reminded me a lot of him.
Oh, so okay. Cool.
That totally reminded me when you mentioned that. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about it. If you like big proggy synths and heavy live drums, you're going to like it. But also I can see what Dan is saying by those electronic elements as well, because it does sort of have some of that stuff happening, but at the same time, it does a lot of different things too. So I thought it was super good and a lot of fun. So
yeah, definitely. It kind of, every time I listen to music like this, I want to start a band that sounds like it.
Right.
Every time.
That happens to me all the time.
And then I'm like, then I start thinking about it. I'm like, do I really? After like 3 weeks, I'm kind of like, man, it would be, and that's definitely not to take anything away from this kind of music, but like, I'm always like, man, it would be so cool if I just called up like my drummer friend and, we did like a synth drum thing and made it like super crazy. And you know what I mean? Every time I hear like a band like this, I always want to start like a band like it.
Well, that's a pretty good review right there, right? I mean, if you can say this inspired me to want to start a new band, that's cool,
true. Very, very true.
But yeah, speaking of fun, I'll go ahead with my pick for the week, and that is Nikki and the Corvettes. Now, I've never heard of Nikki and the Corvettes. I've never heard anyone mention them. I think the Donnas might have mentioned them in a song, one single song. But all I can say is they deserve a hell of a lot more credit than I've ever seen them get, because this seems to almost be ground zero for some really cool ideas that probably wouldn't come into actual fruition until 15 years after this came out. Anyway, Nikki and the Corvettes. Nikki Corvette is not her real name, but that's what she goes by. Nikki Corvette grew up in Detroit. She ran away from home when her mom wouldn't let her go to an MC5 show. She was dating somebody from the Romantics. They decided they were going to make a record, so they put this band together. It is an all-female power pop / punk rock / pop punk / rock and roll band. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm not sure any of this stuff really existed before that. Of course, Elements did, but I've never heard it so like stripped down and on purpose. It just, there's no bullshit here, but it absolutely is one of the funnest things I think I've ever heard. The songs are so fun. They're like Ramones songs, but without the dark edge. They're a lot more bubblegum than the Ramones. And honestly, it's a lot better playing on the songs as well. Not that that matters. I think that the Ramones, people who like the Ramones, like that element of it and how stripped down it is. But
right,
these have like nice melodies, nice vocals, good guitar solos, great drumming, a lot of interesting choices, but all of it very rooted in like 50s rock and roll and bubblegum pop, 50s, 60s, things like that. But yeah, it is so super fun. It's almost too much. Like I can see people being like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Like this is too bubblegum, you know? But the things that inspired in the early to mid 90s, even the late 90s, it's the same sort of idea. I personally, I can only make it through about half of a NoFX record. You know what I mean? Or like Screeching Weasel or something. And I think this is pretty similar to that. It's so much and so fun that I don't know if you'll be able to take it. But you should give it a shot because I had a blast listening to it. Honestly, I was so excited when I heard it. And when it started, it got to the song Let's Go. I literally clapped in my car. Like I was so excited. I clapped. I was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. It's like one of those things where you just discover something and you're like, why haven't I heard this? Like I could have, I mean, seriously, the first, I think it's Come On is the song. And it's seriously, the chorus is come on, let's go. We're going to have a party. Like it's almost a precursor to like Andrew WK kind of stuff.
right.
And it's just a blast. It's super fun. I can't say it enough. If you're in a bad mood, put it on. It might make you in a worse mood, but I would say that chances are it'll make you in a better mood. But yeah, if you just want some Ramones inspired bubblegum punk, that's super fun and just super girly. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but I mean, every song is just celebrating femininity and like the song Boys, Boys, Boys. And like, I mean, that's just the mood of the record is like, we are boy crazy. And it's a blast. Super fun. So anyway, what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, this was great. I mean, it definitely it makes total sense that she was dating a guy from the Romantics. And it's interesting because the opening track, He's a Mover. That riff reminded me a lot of what I like about you, actually.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So I thought that it's interesting that you brought that up because I was actually going to say that. And then it also makes sense that the Donnas would mention Nikki and the Corvettes. Yeah, I think this is definitely a precursor to a lot of that stuff. And even like the Riot Girl movement. I think that I don't think it would be too far of a reach at all to say that Kathleen Hanna probably at one time in her life listened to this record, or even Courtney Love, or, somebody like that. And then also Green Day. You could go on and on about how much this is probably actually a secretly sort of influential record that, like you said, is not getting near the credit that it deserves. I hear a lot of, a little bit of the Runaways, but I do think that this is more fun than the Runaways. I mean, like you said, it's celebrating femininity. And I'm probably saying that completely wrong because I have a pronunciation problem sometimes. But anyway, yeah, I mean, and some of the songs are just unapologetically raunchy, which I think is
like Backseat Love.
Backseat Love. That's the first one that I thought of.
So fun.
And if you think about it, the Donnas had unapologetically raunchy songs. I mean, Take It Off, the big hit of theirs.
Yeah.
And then even Bikini Kill had some like unapologetically just overly sexual songs, and that was a way to get her point across of what she was trying to get through to the audience, I think. And so,
sort of to take that back a little bit from rock and roll.
Exactly. Take the whole machoism and, like not every band can be Manowar. You know, I mean, it would be absolutely hilarious if every band was man.
There'd be a motorcycle shortage. They'd have to ride them all out on stage.
I also think that
loincloth demand would be through the roof.
I think sword sales would just skyrocket. It would just be like insane. And there would also be a lot of people standing on mountains without their shirt on, you know. I was going to joke and I was going to say, just to be a smart ass, you know, because you and I had the different takes on Paris Death Hilton, you know. I was going to be a smart ass and be like, well, I think Erik and I had, you know, real different takes. This really reminded me of a cross between King Crimson and Yes, you know. But anyway, just to let you guys all know, this does not sound like King Crimson.
No, Yes. This is the antithesis of King Crimson.
Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Really fun stuff. It's almost at times, it definitely does remind me of like the song structure of the Ramones.
There's a song, I Want to Be Your Girlfriend.
I Want to Be Your Girlfriend.
It's not, you know, it's not like they're hiding that Ramones influence.
Exactly. And the song Gimme Gimme. Yeah. You put another gimme, then you got a Black Flag song.
Oh yeah. And then you also have Let's Go and Shake It Up, which are both Cars songs. So
and
there's a song called Just What I Need instead of Just What I Need.
And then there's Summertime Fun, which, you know,
is that a Cars song?
Oh. Well, no, but what's the song Summertime Blues? That's Blue Cheer, isn't it?
Well, originally it was Eddie Cochran, I believe.
Oh, that was a cover.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then you also got Let's Go is the name of a Rancid record.
Yeah.
These guys definitely inspired.
These guys influenced everybody.
Everybody. My God. The Cars. I mean, come on, Rick Ocasek.
You know he knows about this. You know he just ripped it off.
You're the one that I'm the one by the Descendants in 1996.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Come
On is a Cheap Trick song.
Yeah, Come On, a Cheap Trick song.
All right.
Boys. There's Boys of Summer by Don Henley. We're getting wet.
I hope this shit Don Henley wasn't influenced by Nikki and the Corvettes.
I hope Don Henley's not listening to our podcast.
I hope he's never heard it. That's what I want for him. That's how good this record is, that I wish for my enemies to never hear it.
Well, I'm sure somewhere somebody who you wouldn't get along with have heard Nikki and the Corvettes.
Well,
now maybe they don't like it.
Yeah, because they probably hate it because they're jerks.
Exactly. Like Steve Martin in that movie.
Yeah,
the jerk.
He's actually my only enemy.
Steve Martin is an enemy of yours?
Yeah, we have issues.
Really?
Banjo related. We won't get into it.
Banjo related issues. I'm going to make that.
We got banjo beef.
Banjo beef. Dude, I'm going to make that segue into MJ's. MJ's request, because I bet there's banjo on this. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. I don't remember. But it looks like a record that could have banjo on it. Our friend Michael Dunlap, MJ Dunlap, recommended that we review this record. It's only on Bandcamp, and I looked up Peter and the Wolf on Spotify and everything else. I couldn't find anything else on this group, so I don't even know where they're from. Or it looks like Austin, because I'm looking at the Bandcamp tags. So this is a record called The Ivory Palms, and the Bandcamp is Traffique, TRAFFIQUE.bandcamp.com. I don't know if maybe that's like a former name or something, or I don't know. There's another Peter and the Wolf, at least one other group called Peter and the Wolf. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure. In any case, this is a 13-song release. It's very, very indie folk. It's got a lo-fi element to it, but I think that the songs are really good. Particularly, I mean, there's some songs that I like better than others, and I can't really single out any ones. But I really like the opening track, 100 Days. The Traveler and the Country Boys is another good one. There's some live stuff that they threw on here, like the song Ghost Sandals is really good. Sparks. I think that if you're a fan of, stuff like Bright Eyes and the Mountain Goats, but also if you're a fan of like maybe even a little bit of like Sufjan Stevens, Bonnie Prince Billy, I hear a lot of like that kind of going on here. And these are all just kind of comparisons that I'm kind of throwing out there. The Shins. This is I think this is your cup of tea, and I think it's done really well. I really like the kind of lo-fi-ness of it. I like the fact it's not recorded perfectly, and I think that's part of its charm. I really like the guy's voice too, and that's kind of my issue a lot of times with music like this that's sort of more on the indie folk stuff. The voice can really make it or break it with me, and I tend to like the more untrained sort of stranger sounding vocals. I think that's why, like, I really like, for example, John Darnell from the Mountain Goats. I really like his vocals quite a bit. And Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse. I like kind of like the strange vocals that you can kind of tell that they are not necessarily the best singers, but that what they're doing works very well for the type of music that they're playing. I think that applies here. I'm not saying he's a bad singer. He's a great singer and a great songwriter, but you can tell that he's kind of singing from his heart. Also, this kind of has a little bit in common with your pick from last episode, Perfume Genius, as well, Erik. I can kind of see some comparisons going on here. And I'm sorry to keep just throwing out comparisons, but basically it's just, if you're into like sort of experimental lo-fi, and it's not all lo-fi either. I mean, some of it is recorded really well. I think it's more the live stuff that you would consider it. But yeah, and there's a freak folk element to it. Parts of it, the guitar's really gorgeous, as it usually is. I'm usually with stuff like this, the music I always like it. I always love it. It kind of invokes memories of, like, I don't know, sitting on a front porch drinking beer with friends or something, like in a different way than, like, say, Motley Crue would. It's like, it kind of has that, like, summer evening sort of vibe to it. It's a really chill record, and I really enjoy it. What did you think of this, Erik?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's not dissimilar to things I listen to, but in its own way, it's not the kind of thing I usually listen to. It was really good. I liked how minimal the instrumentation is, especially in the first half of the record or so, maybe the first third of the record. It really felt like it was a person, and this is my imagination, but a person who is in a room and all they have is a guitar and a piano and a microphone, and that's it. And everything sounds like it was recorded using it that way. Like even the percussion is just clapping and snapping and things like that. And then a lot of the other parts that might be there, like strings or horns, a lot of times that seems to be done by the vocal, which brings me to basically my favorite part of the record, which was the harmonies are really cool and layered, and they take up other space in the song, like the horns and strings and things like that. They almost get like, almost psychedelic. They're like so dense and intricate, the harmonies, that they're just amazing.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was just one person doing all those overdubs because the voice sounds so right on. But then they do have some live tracks, and they seem to have the same harmonies. So they must be a couple people singing. I don't know. But yeah, I loved how minimal the instrumentation was. It wasn't seriously till halfway through where we even get like a cymbal, I don't think. So I loved the lo-fi element of it. It reminded me a lot of Bright Eyes and even Modest Mouse in the way that you can tell things are recorded across the room, especially vocals. And so it's really lo-fi, but it's really warm, and it has that far away sound to it. One other thing I noticed with this is there are elements of ragtime throughout this whole thing. Like, especially, I think there's a piano based song, and that very much is just kind of like a ragtime song. And so, again, another narrative I sort of made up here is that because in the record, lyrically, there are a lot of references to traveling, being a voyager, riding trains, being homeless. So it almost has this like this hobo aesthetic, you know?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so I know with a lot of people in that realm, ragtime and bluegrass and freak folk is a huge element of what they do, you know, when they're busking or whatever. And so
Sure.
I think they're sort of trying to generate that aesthetic. I don't know anything about Peter and the Wolf, but they seem to at least be fostering this sort of hobo crust punk traveling kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
So I think that could probably explain the ragtime bluegrass kind of stuff that sneaks in there. I definitely would not say that's the focal point by any means, because then you have a lot of songs on here that have no influence from that as far as I can tell.
Right.
So, but it does kind of bubble up every once in a while. So
sure.
I really
Absolutely.
liked it, especially the vocal harmonies really did it for me. Yeah, it was a good pick. So thanks, MJ, for suggesting it.
Absolutely. And also, MJ, if you know more about this band, please let us know, because I would be curious if you know like more about like any other, because I literally couldn't find anything other than this Bandcamp. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
I'd like to see like, you know, do you know if there's any live performances or anything that exist on YouTube? Because I would be interested in seeing this in a live setting.
Me too.
So yeah, awesome. Thank you, MJ.
Yeah, sweet.
Good
so
pick.
I guess it's time for the local review. This week I picked Justice Fetish. They are from Des Moines. The record is called I Hope This Keeps You Up at Night. Came out just recently, this month. It's hard to say when you're hearing this.
Right.
And when we're recording it, but it's out. It's out. Yeah. And it came out recently. So yeah, they're from Des Moines. They call what they do no wave hardcore, and I get that. I think I can hear that. It's almost as if the singer and the drummer are in a hardcore band and the guitar and the bass are in a no wave band, which is great because that no wave element, I can hear it. It's like there's some television in there, the fall, wipers, kind of things like that. Things probably played on Jazzmaster guitars, you know. But then, you know, my understanding of hardcore, I don't have a lot, unfortunately, to compare things to, but a couple groups that I like that I also thought shared some elements of this are the Locust and Genghis Tron. And that's mostly in it gets kind of spazzy in moments. Like, I don't want to say goofy or funny because that's not really what it is. It just gets a little wild and weird. But it does make it a little bit more intense when the heavy stuff happens, you know, and it adds an element of like wildness to the whole thing. Like you don't feel very safe listening to it. There's not a lot to like latch onto. And that's really good because I think if I had to guess, I would think that Justice Fetish is purposely trying to sort of discombobulate the listener. You know, they're trying to get you wound up and out of sorts. And I think it works tremendously. The playing is just amazing all the way through. Very tight, super interesting, not like anything I've heard before. And like I said, my experience with hardcore is limited, but it's still, I've never heard hardcore exactly like this. So, but I love the sound that everyone's coming up with, and the playing is awesome, like I said. So yeah, they're very, very political. If you pay attention to lyrics, you'll hear that. If you don't, I guess it doesn't really matter. But they're anarchist, vegan. I don't know if you know how militant they are as people, but in the music, the lyrics seem to be pretty focused. So That's cool. In addition to this having just come out, this record, they're playing a bunch of shows soon around Iowa. August 21st will be in Iowa City with PsyOps, which is a friend of mine's band, Dolly. And Stress Positions is another band that's playing. And that will be at a place called Purgatory. And if you don't have the address for that, then just ask a punk. But yeah, I love Justice Fetish. It was super enjoyable to listen to. And I'm super glad to be hearing this kind of stuff coming out of Iowa. Yeah, I can't wait to see him play soon. So what'd you think, Dan?
Yeah, I loved it. I like how this kind of music is just, it doesn't dwell on anything. It just gets straight to the point. You know what I mean? Like most of the songs are no more than, a minute and a half, but there are a couple of them that are over 2 minutes towards the end. But I love that aspect of it. And I really like the title. I hope this keeps you up at night, as well as the band name, Justice Fetish. I hear the sort of skronk no wave elements meets the hardcore for sure. A lot of this, some of it reminds me of something like Converge. If I had to think of like one band, I mean, a lot of this reminds me a lot of the Daughters. But it's completely, it doesn't sound like a rehash of the Daughters. It sounds like they're doing their own thing. It's definitely like I agree with you, Erik, that it's not exactly like anything I've ever heard before. I've heard the no wave meets hardcore thing done before, but not like this exactly. This is, I feel like, a new approach to it. It's like you kind of said, I can hear that the drummer is definitely more of a hardcore or even metal drummer. And then, the bass player and guitarists, I definitely hear more of like a noisy punk element, like a noise rock element or something like that kind of going on. Some of the riffs even remind me of like a sped up Jesus Lizard or something like that. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. Yeah. And I bet this would be a blast to see live.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you're going to have to let me know when that show is, and I might try and make it.
Yeah. They're also playing with Closet Witch.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah. September 9th. I think the show in Iowa City on August 21st is going to be pretty cool too.
And I do have to say that if I had this blasting at full volume, it definitely would keep me up at night for sure. So I think mission accomplished, guys.
I'm hoping the ringing in my ears will keep me up at night. So.
Yeah, that's true. I remember when I used to go to shows without wearing earplugs.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it would almost be like, you'd be like proud or stoked about it. Like the next day, like, I can't hear anything.
Yeah. And
it's like, oh my God, dude.
I remember the eeriest thing would be like going to a show with no earplugs at like Gabe's or something, driving all the way home at 2:00 in the morning to Muscatine with just this.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, and that was it. Like, I couldn't even listen to music.
Right.
It was so surreal. It literally was like, I was like, and it would add like a weird element to it if it was like lightning out or something, or if it was like a weird sky, because then it felt like I was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something. It was great. I don't recommend.
Here I am trying to tell people to protect their hearing. You're like, it was the best thing that's ever happened.
I mean, there were times like when I was 18 years old where I thought it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, it was almost like, oh yeah, well, I mean, that means I went to a good show if you can't hear, you know?
Exactly.
And now I know that's not the case, but I remember, when you're like 17 or 18, you think it's badass not to wear hearing protection, just like you think it's badass not to wear a seatbelt.
Yeah.
My parents, I was the first person I knew and this was in the 90s. My parents, since I lived in Nichols, bought like 3 cell phones but I mean, these were like the block cell phones. Obviously they didn't have smartphones back then, but like the huge, like they looked like walkie talkies. Right.
Mhm.
And, they bought them, one for me and one for, my mom and one for my dad. And the reason why they did it, and this was totally awesome in retrospect, was because I was commuting back and forth from Nichols to Muscatine.
Mhm.
I lived in Nichols, but I was going to school in Muscatine. It's like a 17-minute drive.
Mhm.
So, if something happened and like my car broke down or something, I would have a phone to call my parents. Right. And I used to argue with them about that. I don't need no cell phone. Nobody else has a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like, what's a cell phone? You know what I mean? This is stupid. You're treating me like a little kid, blah, blah, blah. When, you are a kid, basically.
Right.
I mean, but it's like I refused. I would purposely leave my cell phone at home just to spite them.
Wow.
And like, you know what I mean? Sometimes,
Mhm.
and then like, I mean, I usually would take it with me, but if I got into like an argument, when you're 16 years old, sometimes you're just ungrateful as hell,
Mhm. Yeah.
And looking back on it, I was just like, God damn, they were so right. Now look at the world. And I was like, I remember like friends of mine thought it was kind of weird that I had this like cell phone in my glove compartment. I mean, we used it strictly for talking and that's it. Like I could only use it for emergencies because there was only so many minutes available like every month. It's crazy, man. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was the first kid at Muscatine High School to have a cell phone, but I was the first one to know, or, that I know of.
Mhm.
But like, crazy, man. It's just crazy to think that like, okay, now here we are. What is it? It's 2021 now.
Mhm.
And here we are 20 some years later. And like, I'm looking at, like, I'm listening to Justice Fetish on my phone, like I never thought that was going to happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
for sure.
never thought I was going to be able to talk to people, like on the phone I never thought I was going to be able to watch YouTube on the phone,
No. Yeah.
So crazy, man.
It is nuts.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to my phone.
I am too. I'm totally addicted. I totally just like, I want to be controlled.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about smoking phones, right? That's what I'm addicted to.
Smoking phones?
Yeah.
Well, now I do remember that there was a certain brand of cell phones that were actually randomly catching on fire.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Man, they should make it that way now. So there's a little bit of fear the whole time.
Well, we got enough fear right now, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Maybe we'll wait a decade or so and then make them randomly exploding.
Let's turn off the fire switch on these phones for a little bit until the pandemic's over.
There you go. Pandemic's over. Okay.
All right, let's get these things burning.
Yeah. This might shoot flames into your ear. Be ready.
I think this stupid motherfucker should have been using the speakerphone anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, what age is he living in?
T-Mobile, those will blow your ear off.
Dude, that would be great if that's the conversations that these companies are having with these voices. Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, we better, make it safe for these people. They're catching on fire right now the way it is.
Whole head goes up.
They have like drawings on like a chalkboard, like,
yeah,
this is what happens. We're not going to make this happen again. Oh, man. I think if I ever owned a business, I'd make sure everybody would talk like that at all times.
Meeting voice, please. Oh, yeah, right. Well, anyway, I was saying.
Come on, man. Oh my God!
These sons of bitches right here. That's all I have to start it every time.
I mean, I think that if like you're making a product that is catching on fire randomly, it only would make sense if you talked like that.
Yeah. Whole head goes up.
whole head goes up. Holy shit.
Oh my God.
That is a whole head goes up. Well,
all right.
If you guys want to go to our Facebook and go to our Instagram, the Accelerativ Thrust, we're still there, man.
Yep. And there's a link to the links.
Yep, there's a link to the links. To where you can listen to this podcast. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're already listening, so we don't really need to tell you that, but tell your friends about it.
Yeah, tell your friends. And if you don't have friends, well, you can talk to us.
Tell your enemies.
We'll be your friends. Yeah, tell your enemies too.
I mean, it's like I don't care. I'll have friends and enemies listen to this.
Yeah, and who knows, your enemies might be my friends. So
yeah, you just never know.
Yeah, one man's trash. As they say.
I'm just thinking of like some kid who's getting bullied every day by the same kid, and while he's getting like punched in the face, he's like, "Hey, dude, have you listened to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast?" And then the guy stops punching him, like, "No, I'll check it out." Okay, and then he's like, "Boom, boom."
Resume punching.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram, Accelerativ Thrust. Also, I don't know if a lot of you are aware, but I'm sure you probably are, but there's a YouTube channel, Accelerativ Thrust, which has been pretty inactive for the last 3 months, but more content coming to that soon. We'll let you know.
So keep your eyes open.
In the meantime, if you want to go over there and check out the content that's up there, it's a lot different than this podcast, except for the 2 videos that I did with Erik. The other stuff is just me before this podcast, but that's all kind of interesting stuff, I guess, to some people. I mean, it was interesting.
You sold that one.
Well, it was interesting. It's interesting to me, but hey, what are you gonna do?
So if you are listening and you have a band, an Iowa band, let us know if you want us to review it or anything, or if your friends do, like, tell us what we should check out.
Don't forget enemies.
If your enemies have a band you want to have us review, make sure to say they're enemies, and then we'll do a really bad review. That'll be funny. We'll start some beef. Yeah,
Iowa beef cast.
Get a hold of us and let us know what you want to hear, because we're open to it. So
we are.
Yeah.
You guys have a very, very wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye. While he's getting like punched in the face, he's like, "Hey, dude, have you listened to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast?"